Hey everyone out there in YouTube land, Dan here once again from Geekcast Radio, the comic concierge, going through all the Marvel Fresh Start titles, giving you my thoughts and opinions on them. Today we will be discussing Black Panther #1, which is a little bit different than some of the relaunches that I talked about so far with the Avengers as well as Venom. As unlike some of those, with this Black Panther #1, we actually have the same writer, Ta-Nehisi Coates, who's been on Black Panther for about 2 years now. The first issue he wrote came out around the time Civil War came out, timing up with the cinematic release of that character, of T'Challa, and now he's been running for some time. And honestly, like I read that run, at least the first few issues of it, and I was not a huge fan of it. And Ta-Nehisi Coates is a very talented writer, but he's coming from another world, and he was coming into the world of comics, and sometimes it takes some time to learn how to write for comics. And reading his work, it was very overly verbose in a bad way. It was hard to follow. The pacing was off. It didn't really function like a comic should. It was really hard to get invested to it. Like the comprehension of the story was lacking. And as someone who, I've read a lot of Black Panther, but even I was lost at times with things it was referring to. It felt like even though it's just starting off, it lacked any being self-contained within its own story. So it was hard to follow, basically, to put it bluntly. And I did try it again once we had the Marvel Legacy kind of renumbering in this past fall, and brought in Claw, and I thought that was okay. It still was lacking, in my opinion, and in a way, I almost felt like it was simplified, but in a bad way, and where lost a lot of his personality within it. So I went into this like wondering, okay, I'll try it again. Maybe third time's a charm. Maybe this will be the opportunity that he'll be able to kind of do something new and actually have a fresh start. I was worried that this wouldn't actually be a fresh start. It would be so linked to things I haven't read. I would be lost. And I actually thought this was by far the best Black Panther comic he has written, and there was a little bit of a hint to what it would be getting into in a Legacy one-shot last fall, where we saw that Wakanda was in space. And that seems a little bit ridiculous, but it could be fun. And this is where this picks up, is the intergalactical, geez, I can't talk. We get a little bit of a preview of basically what happened with Wakanda, with a number of people going off into splitting off from Wakanda and trying to start citizenship in space. And what's a little bit different about this is that we're not actually fully sure what's going on. And I think some people could pick this up and be kind of confused, because a lot of things are not explained to you. And I think it's purposeful. You really, I think, put into the mindset of the main character here, who looks a lot like T'Challa, acts a lot like him. He kind of awakes and finds himself in this prison camp, this alien prison camp, and he's trying to escape. And clearly he is a good fighter, because he's able to kind of ward off all these guards pretty easily, and he's continuing trying to escape. At the same time, we get another story where we do see some of that Wakanda nation in space that have taken upon themselves a lot of the mythology of the past Wakanda nations, using a lot of the names like we could recognize, like M'Baku and things of that nature. This seems that they're taking the legacy of Wakanda and using it to form this new Wakanda empire in space. So it seems like this may be taking place in the future. And this main character, who we assume is T'Challa, just to start off with, I don't want to spoil anything, but it seems very much that's the case. We don't know how he ended up here. Is he lost in space? Is it like a situation where he's, what exactly is happening here? It's not super clear. So if things seem kind of confusing, I think it's purposeful, because you're trying to get in his mindset. He is really our advice for the majority of this issue. And it's drawn by Daniel Acuna, and his art, I do like his art. I think some may not love the style of it. My one gripe was that I thought like the alien design, I don't know if I can find it, was a little lacking. It just seemed kind of like generic alien. And see if I'm looking through it to find a non-spoilerific example of this, but the guards just look like kind of generic guards. Just, you can kind of see it's like generic alien guards here and there. It's not a horrible thing, but I do think he does his action is well defined in the way that there's a lot of movement to this, even though it's very kinetic, which is you wouldn't expect. I do like the coloring as well. It's got an intriguing color palette. And at the same time, he's also seeing all these different flashes to this woman who he doesn't know. And is that possibly Storm, who was previously the wife of Black Panther? A lot of questions aren't answered, but I think it's fun. I thought it was actually quite enjoyable. Just this idea of Wakanda in space and seeing what that would look like, kind of taking a lot of what's established in the movie, the futuristic technology look, and kind of upping up the ante. Like, it's imagine Star Wars with the fact that the stormtroopers or the Rebel Alliance had Black Panther gear, and instead of fighting stormtroopers, are fighting this different alien race. So I think it has a lot of potential, and I think when it just comes to the structure of it, it's a lot better than anything Ta-Nehisi Coates has written in comic form previously. It feels like a comic should. It's a little lighter. There's less meat to it, which maybe it seemed like a bad thing, but I think in this case it's good. He simplified, I think, his process and his creative voice within this issue. Maybe it will develop moving on, but as just a jumping on point to fit in that mantra of fresh start, I think that's something you needed to do. Dial things back, give a legitimate good starting point, and then give us an opportunity to go from there. So I'm excited to see where this goes. And I think if you're a person who maybe didn't love the other Black Panther series, like myself, I think this is a great starting point. If you love Black Panther movie, like the biggest movie of this year so far, pick this up. I think you'll enjoy it as well. There's, like I said, there's still a lot of questions that haven't been answered, still things we're not completely sure of. But when it came to just building intrigue, and I think the number one goal of any first issue of any series, even if it's a ongoing series, is building intrigue, and this to me has succeeded in that. Like I said, I had some issues with the art. I do think the alien world is a little ill-defined at this point and doesn't have me super excited, but everything else surrounding it I think has a lot of potential. So another for right now for me, when it comes to Marvel fresh start titles, it's 3 for 3. And I actually thought, I was one of the few people that I thought Marvel actually had a lot of good books before this fresh start. Yeah, there's some problems here and there, but I think they're really actually turning a corner, and especially with some of their major books right now. There's still a lot to coming out. This upcoming Wednesday, next Wednesday, it's a big week with the release of Deadpool and the new Hulk book and some other Doctor Strange by Mark Waid. Those will also be doing some reviews on. I'm curious to see how those all turn out. The one I think I'm most excited for is Hulk. I've seen a lot of the preview images and the little brief idea. Al Ewing, who I believe is a writer, introduced his concept of Hulk in that No Surrender miniseries or weekly series back earlier this year, this idea of the immortal Hulk. And I'm curious to see making it more of a kind of a horror book, bringing it back to those roots of the character. So I think that could be good. I've not actually read a straight up Hulk book since maybe World War Hulk. It's been a long time. Scotty Young doing Deadpool has me excited. I'm a big Scotty Young fan. I did love Jerry Dugan's run on it. Thought it ended at a good point. Now seeing where it can go, and Mark Waid doing Doctor Strange, I'm hesitant on. I like Mark Waid as a writer, but I don't know if there is anything. Is he going to do anything to surprise me? I'm not sure. It's hard at this moment in time. Maybe he will. I mean, I loved what he's been doing with Captain America since he took that over. I loved the Doctor Strange run by Jason Aaron and Donny Cates. I like the direction it was going, and it seems like this is kind of bringing back Doctor Strange to what he was before they kind of redefined the character, which I don't know if I'm super excited for. We'll see. I'm holding out hope. And I'll be talking about those coming up as well. So if you've been liking these videos, please let me know. You can leave some comments down below. I really appreciate that. Subscribe. You know how to do all that. You're grown up. You know how YouTube works. But we're going to try to have more video content for Geekcast Radio. It seems what the kids like to do nowadays. But you can also check out a lot of my comic book thoughts on my comic book podcast, Comic Concierge. That's like Geekcast Radio. I do weekly roundup reviews where I talk about the week that was in comics as well as each week I'll bring on a special guest to talk about a series. Recently, Matt Stewart from the Simplistic Reviews and I discussed Harrow County and some other, we're actually talking about the third volume now, and we'll be continuing that discussion, and some other guests coming on as well. I talked recently about Travis Anderson about the book One of March, one of the best comics to me in the last 10 years. And it's really excited to doing those type of conversations because you can dive a little bit deeper into some volumes. So I have some other video content I'll be producing as well, trying to get more of these out on a more consistent basis. But for now, this has been Dan. Remember that comics are for everyone. The key is finding the right one. Until next time, thanks for watching.